She didn't disappear. She went silent. And that silence is speaking louder than any text she ever sent. Listen closely, because most men misunderstand this moment and destroy their own position without realizing it. When a woman stops texting, your mind jumps to rejection, competition, or failure. You assume you said the wrong thing, waited too long, or didn't do enough. That panic you feel isn't accidental. It's the result of conditioning, not reality. Silence from a woman does not automatically mean loss. Sometimes it means tension. Sometimes it means emotional activation. And sometimes it means you just became the most interesting variable in her mind. Here's the truth men are rarely told. Women don't emotionally bond through constant communication the way men seek reassurance through consistency. Female attraction is not built through availability. It's built through emotional contrast. When you were texting regularly, you were predictable, safe, known. And familiarity, while comforting, rarely fuels desire. When the pattern breaks, her nervous system wakes up. She starts noticing the absence. She begins filling in the gaps with imagination. And imagination is far more powerful than information. You think she stopped texting because she lost interest, but pay attention to what she's still doing. She watches your stories, she checks your status, she reacts late at night, she asks indirect questions through mutual friends, she appears where you might be. That's not indifference, that's unresolved emotional curiosity. Silence is not always withdrawal. Sometimes it's observation. Women test differently than men. A man asks direct questions. A woman changes the environment and watches how you respond. When she pulls back, she's not always walking away. She's measuring. She's watching to see if you collapse, chase, explain, overinvest, or betray your own value just to regain comfort. This is where most men fail. They panic text, they double message, they send paragraphs trying to fix something that isn't broken, and the moment they do, the tension dies. A woman doesn't respect what she doesn't have to risk losing. If your attention is guaranteed, it loses emotional weight. When you disappear into yourself instead of chasing her silence, something shifts. Her brain starts asking questions your mouth never could. Why isn't he reacting? Why isn't he trying to win me back? Why does he seem unaffected? Those questions create emotional engagement, and emotional engagement is the foundation of attraction. This isn't about manipulation, it's about self-control. The most powerful response to silence is stability. When you don't rush to fill the void, you communicate something deeper than confidence. You communicate self-sufficiency. You show that your emotional state does not depend on her behavior. That's rare. And rarity triggers interest. Here's what most men don't realize. A woman can stop texting you and still feel pulled toward you at the same time. Emotions are not linear. She can crave distance and connection simultaneously. Silence gives her space to feel without pressure, and pressure is the fastest way to kill attraction. When she stops texting, she's not asking you to chase. She's watching to see if you remain grounded, if you can tolerate uncertainty without breaking character, if your life continues with purpose instead of obsession. That's the test beneath the silence. And if you pass it, you don't need to say anything at all. Here's the truth men are rarely told. Women don't emotionally bond through constant communication the way men seek reassurance through consistency. Female attraction is not built through availability. It's built through emotional contrast. When you were texting regularly, you were predictable, safe, known. And familiarity, while comforting, rarely fuels desire. When the pattern breaks, her nervous system wakes up. She starts noticing the absence. She begins filling in the gaps with imagination. And imagination is far more powerful than information. You think she stopped texting because she lost interest, but pay attention to what she's still doing. She watches your stories, she checks your status, she reacts late at night, she asks indirect questions through mutual friends, she appears where you might be. That's not indifference, that's unresolved emotional curiosity. Silence is not always withdrawal. Sometimes it's observation. When silence stretches, the real battle moves inside you, not between you and her, but between impulse and discipline. This is where attraction is either preserved or poisoned. Most men mistake emotional discomfort for danger. They feel the urge to act, to clarify, to explain themselves back into relevance. But attraction does not respond to explanation. It responds to emotional strength displayed under pressure. Understand what she is actually doing. She isn't punishing you. She's regulating her own emotions. Women pull back when feelings start to challenge their sense of control. Distance gives her space to observe how safe it feels to want you. If desire creates anxiety, she pauses contact to see if that anxiety settles or intensifies. Your reaction determines the outcome. If you chase, you confirm her fear. You show that closeness with you equals emotional responsibility, that wanting you comes with pressure, expectations, and emotional labor. That's heavy. Desire avoids heaviness, but if you remain steady, you become a calm point in her emotional chaos. She begins associating you with relief instead of tension. Men often believe attraction grows from proving value. In reality, attraction grows from assuming value. You don't argue your worth. You don't negotiate attention. You live as if your presence is optional but meaningful. Silence is your opportunity to demonstrate that truth without saying a word. This is where your internal state matters more than strategy. If you're silent but resentful, she feels it later. If you're silent but hopeful, you're still dependent. The silence that shifts attraction is neutral, calm, unbothered. It comes from a life that feels full without constant validation. Women are intuitive to emotional undercurrents. When you stop reaching out, she doesn't just notice the absence. She senses the reason behind it. If it feels grounded, she relaxes. If it feels manipulative, she resists. That's why pretending not to care fails. You can't fake indifference. You can only replace need with purpose. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop monitoring her behavior, she becomes more aware of yours. When your attention turns inward, her attention turns outward. She starts wondering where your energy went, what replaced her in your focus, whether she misjudged her importance in your life. This curiosity is not guaranteed, but it's possible only if you don't interfere. Silence must be clean. No passive-aggressive posts, no indirect messages, no sudden overexposure. You don't vanish to provoke. You continue living. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes silence reveals incompatibility. Sometimes she doesn't come back. And that outcome terrifies men because they confuse attraction with survival. But losing someone who only stays when you overextend is not loss. It's correction. Your job is not to pull her closer. Your job is to stay aligned with yourself while she decides what your presence means to her. That's masculine stability. That's emotional leadership. It doesn't demand, it invites. When she feels that you are centered, not chasing, not collapsing, something changes. The silence no longer feels like power in her hands. It feels like space she hasn't filled yet, and human nature hates unresolved space. This is when she reaches out indirectly, a small reaction, a late message, a casual check-in, not because you forced it, but because the emotional loop remained open. Silence handled poorly pushes her away. Silence handled well pulls her back without effort. And the difference is not what you do, it's who you are while doing nothing. Remember this, confidence is quiet. It doesn't announce itself or seek applause. It allows uncertainty without panic. When you master that stillness, you stop reacting to female behavior and start leading emotional frames. That's when women feel drawn without understanding why, because certainty is attractive and scarcity of certainty is rare. Not because you chase outcomes, but because you embody calm direction when situations feel unclear to others. There's a detail most men overlook when a woman goes quiet. What matters isn't the silence itself, it's what replaces it in her emotional world. Women don't detach by forgetting, they detach by reframing. And the way you behave during silence gives her the raw material to rewrite who you are in her mind. If you chase, you become noise. If you explain, you become predictable. If you disappear with resentment, you become unsafe. But if you remain present in your own life, untouched by urgency, you become a question she hasn't answered yet. Here's how female psychology works beneath the surface. Attraction is not sustained by constant pleasure. It's sustained by emotional contrast. When she stops texting, her nervous system is recalibrating. She's asking herself whether your absence feels relieving or unsettling. If your presence required effort to maintain, silence feels like freedom. If your presence felt grounding, silence feels like loss. Most men unknowingly make themselves emotionally expensive. They require frequent reassurance. They seek clarity too soon. They turn curiosity into obligation. That drains desire. Silence exposes this dynamic brutally. It removes distraction and reveals emotional weight. When you don't reach out, something subtle happens. She's forced to sit with her own feelings. There's no validation loop, no instant feedback, no confirmation that she still has access to you. That uncertainty activates reflection. And reflection is where attachment either weakens or deepens. This is why women often return after periods of distance. Not because the man did something, but because he didn't. His restraint allowed her emotions to surface without interference. His stability allowed her to feel without pressure. And pressure is the enemy of attraction. Now here's the uncomfortable truth men need to hear. You cannot control whether she comes back, but you can control whether you remain someone worth returning to. That means your silence must not be empty. It must be full of direction. You don't wait. You don't pause your life. You invest deeper into purpose, health, discipline, and social presence, not to perform, but to align. Women are drawn to men whose lives move forward regardless of who's watching. Momentum is magnetic. She will notice changes even without direct contact. Your energy shifts. Your communication becomes cleaner when it returns. Your presence feels lighter. That's not coincidence. That's internal alignment reflecting outward. Men often believe attraction is built through effort toward her. In reality, attraction is built through effort toward self. A man focused on growth communicates abundance without saying a word. A man waiting communicates scarcity even in silence. If she reaches out during this time, your response matters. Calm, unrushed, warm but not eager. You don't punish silence, and you don't reward distance with overinvestment. You meet her where she is, not where you were emotionally when she left. This is where emotional leadership shows. You don't interrogate. You don't ask why she disappeared. You don't reopen wounds. You allow reconnection to happen naturally. Attraction thrives in safety, not tension. And if she doesn't reach out, something else happens. You regain your center. You stop orbiting someone who is unsure. You reclaim clarity. That alone elevates your future interactions with women who are ready, not hesitant. Silence is a mirror. It reflects how much of your identity was tied to her attention. If silence shakes you, there's work to do. If silence steadies you, you've grown. Women don't fall for men who chase certainty. They fall for men who are certain within uncertainty. That's the difference between need and presence. When she feels that you're not waiting to be chosen, but choosing your own path, the dynamic flips. Suddenly, you're not trying to re-enter her world. She's wondering whether she still fits into yours. That's not manipulation. That's polarity. And polarity is the invisible force behind attraction. There comes a point where silence stops being about her and starts revealing you. This is where the lesson deepens. Because the truth is, the woman who stopped texting didn't create your discomfort. She exposed it. Silence doesn't take anything away. It shows you what was missing underneath. Most men live externally anchored lives. Their mood rises and falls with attention, response time, and perceived interest. When communication stops, their sense of worth collapses with it. That's not attraction, that's dependency. And women feel dependency long before men admit it to themselves. A woman can sense when a man's emotional center lives inside her reactions. That awareness triggers withdrawal, not because she wants to hurt you, but because closeness starts to feel like responsibility. Desire doesn't want to be responsible for someone's emotional stability. This is why women test through absence. They need to know whether wanting you will cost them freedom. Silence is how they check. If you remain emotionally regulated, you pass. If you unravel, you fail. Not morally, but psychologically. Here's the truth men rarely hear. You don't win attraction by proving how much you care. You win it by showing how well you stand alone. Care without self-possession feels like pressure. Strength with warmth feels like safety. When she stops texting, the masculine response is not indifference, it's grounded presence. You feel the uncertainty, but it doesn't command you. You don't suppress emotion, and you don't act from it. You observe. That ability to feel without reacting is emotional mastery. And emotional mastery is rare. That's why it's attractive. At this stage, many men make a critical mistake. They interpret silence as a call to improve themselves for her. They start working out harder, earning more, posting better photos, but with her as the audience. That's still dependence. Growth that seeks validation carries need in its shadow. True growth is private. It doesn't announce itself. It changes how you move through the world. It sharpens your standards. It narrows your tolerance for inconsistency. It makes you less available to dynamics that drain you. When this shift happens, something surprising occurs. Even if she returns, you're no longer the same man waiting for her. You're evaluating her. You're noticing patterns. You're asking whether her communication style aligns with the life you're building. This is the moment power quietly changes hands, not through dominance, but through self-respect. Women are drawn to men who don't need them to feel whole. That doesn't make you cold, it makes you safe to want. When a woman feels she can approach without being trapped, desire flows more freely. Silence also teaches patience, and patience is misunderstood. It's not passive waiting. It's active trust in your direction. It's knowing that what's meant to align with you won't require you to abandon yourself. If she reappears and senses this shift, she responds differently. She feels less pressure and more curiosity. She becomes more present, more feminine, more open. Not because you demanded it, but because the environment changed. And if she doesn't return, the silence still served you. It removed distraction. It refined your focus. It prepared you for a woman who won't need to pull away to regulate her emotions. Here's the final truth of this stage. Silence is not a weapon. It's a filter. It filters out insecure reactions, unconscious patterns, and unaligned connections. What remains is clarity. When you stop fearing silence, you stop fearing loss. And when a man is no longer afraid of loss, he becomes magnetic, not to everyone, but to the right ones. Because real attraction doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from being whole. Here's the truth most men never arrive at, even after years of dating experience. The moment she stopped texting wasn't the moment you started losing her. It was the moment you were invited to step into your center. Silence didn't reduce your value. It tested whether you knew it without confirmation. A woman pulling back doesn't mean she wants you gone. It means she's watching how you hold yourself when comfort is removed. Attraction doesn't grow in reassurance. It grows in grounded presence. And presence is revealed only when something familiar disappears. If she comes back, it's not because you waited perfectly or followed a formula. It's because your emotional posture stayed intact. You didn't chase. You didn't punish. You didn't disappear to manipulate. You stayed aligned. That alignment is felt before it's understood. If she doesn't come back, the lesson is still complete. You learned that your peace cannot depend on someone else's consistency. You learned that desire cannot survive self-abandonment. You learned that your worth is not negotiated through response times. This is where many men finally separate attraction from attachment. Attachment needs control. Attraction needs freedom. The man who can offer freedom without withdrawing warmth becomes unforgettable. Female psychology isn't about tricks or tactics, it's about emotional environments. When a woman feels that being close to you doesn't cost her autonomy, she relaxes. When she relaxes, she feels. When she feels, she connects. And connection only grows where pressure doesn't exist. You don't need to dominate the dynamic. You don't need to outplay silence. You don't need to send the perfect message at the perfect time. You need to become the man whose emotional state is not held hostage by uncertainty. That's the shift that changes everything, not just with her, but with every woman who comes after. Because once you stop reacting to silence, silence stops controlling you. You move differently. You speak differently. You choose differently. And women sense that before words are exchanged. Now ask yourself this honestly, not from ego, but from awareness. When she stopped texting, Did you lose your center, or did you strengthen it? Drop your answer in the comments. If this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe for more truths men aren't told, and share this with a friend who's stuck reading silence the wrong way. Some lessons only land when the noise stops.